A very warm welcome to another edition of Political Brew. I'm your host, Donovan Lynch. I'm joined by Republican analyst Garrett Mason, Democratic analyst Ken Altshuler. I think you can guess by how they're dressed who was just in front of the Maine Supreme Court. It was Ken.
It was me.
It was me.
You're too smart to be.
Well, we're glad to have you with us. So much to get to, especially on the national level. And I want to start with the Department of Government Efficiency. It's been a big talker in the news this week. It's called DOGE. It's an office in the White House run by billionaire Elon Musk, and it's ramped up its actions as it seeks to root out waste in government. Now, DOGE has moved to dismantle the U.S. Agency for International Development and gained access to a sensitive payment system within the Treasury Department, though a federal judge did restrict that access on Thursday. While many Republicans have praised Musk's pursuit of cutting waste, Democrats have heavily criticized his actions, perhaps none stronger than Democratic Congressman Jared Golden. He said, quote, "My constituents and a majority of this country put Trump in the White House, not this unelected weirdo billionaire." Garrett, I want to start with you. I mean, cutting waste out of government seems very Republican. But what do the Republicans who are, into individual liberty and privacy make of, this DOGE army in these government departments having some access to personal data?
Well, I don't think it's Republican. I think it's American. I think that, Bill Clinton and people all across the Democratic spectrum have always wanted waste cut out of government. And I think this is a fantastic start. I mean, you mentioned USAID. I mean, USAID was created by executive order under JFK. I mean, so, with President Trump's pen, he can shut that agency down and move everything into the State Department. So there's nothing illegal about that. But, I got thinking about this. The average American couple, and Ken as a divorce lawyer, this. They usually send about $500,000 to the federal government in income taxes over the course of their life. So at the end of their life, under this administration, they can go to their deathbed knowing that they paid for 1/3 of a study where frogs learn how to mate in urban habitats. That's the kind of waste that Elon Musk is rooting out, and I think it's wonderful.
Ken, what do you make of that argument?
Elon Musk cares about one thing. Elon Musk. They predict he's going to be a trillionaire by 2026. He's not elected. He's not appointed. There's no advice and consent by the Senate. He is doing things illegal, and nobody's doing anything about it. Nobody's stopping him. Donald Trump's not making these decisions. Elon Musk is making these decisions. And he picks and chooses. He's got 5 associates, ages 18 to 23, going through your files and my files, confidential information, and we're doing nothing to stop this. It's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous.
Why is it illegal, though?
Because he hasn't been elected. He has no authority to do it. He has no rights to access my information. There's no security clearance for him. Nothing.
He has a top secret security clearance.
He did not get a security clearance, and he can't access the files he's accessing. You care that this guy knows
He
you?
has to have a security clearance because of his work with SpaceX. He has to have
You also understand that he's looking at his competitors' information? He's looking at whatever he wants. This is a man that was not elected president.
I don't know about that. But I can tell you that Elon Musk was on the trail, and this is exactly what the American people voted for. It was no secret that Elon Musk was going to go in and look through the receipts of the federal government. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's exactly what American people voted for.
He spent $280 million to have the right to do this by supporting Republicans for office. It's outrageous. I mean, it's just outrageous.
And when you say 280, you're referring to the contributions Musk made to the Trump
$280 million to Republicans, $250 to Donald Trump, $30 million to others, including, by the way, our 2nd district election.
I want to get into one of the biggest stories of the week, and that's regarding trade. After President Trump threatened to place a 25% tariff on Mexico and Canada, the two countries struck a deal with the U.S., agreeing to measures to combat the trafficking of drugs as well as illegal immigration. And we've started to see the images pour in of Mexican troops deploying along that country's northern border. Garrett, I want to start with you. I mean, the country was talking about the impacts. Will these tariffs happen? How do you think Trump looks right now that we have a deal, but after kind of a uncertain week?
I think if anybody wanted to read, whether you want to listen to Donald Trump or not, The Art of the Deal, this is textbook of what he does. I mean, he's using his leverage to get something that he wants. And now you had the Mexican president and the Canadian prime minister both send troops to the border, both make commitments, and he's holding it 30 days over their head. The tariffs never happened. It was simply a threat of tariffs, and he's gotten what he wants. You look at Colombia, you look at the Panama Canal, we're seeing concessions, and I think that's peace through strength. That is the strength of the American economy, and that's each and every one of us in the work we put in every day. And Donald Trump is able to leverage that for the American people.
And Ken, Mexico, Canada are some of our closest allies. What did you
They
make
were,
of that threat?
Well, it's interesting that Mexico agreed to do what they were already doing. They already had 15,000 troops on the border. All Mexico and Canada agreed to do was what they had already agreed to do with President Biden.
But they hadn't actually done it.
They had sent troops to the border. She had 10,000 troops already on the border before making that deal.
She meaning
the president
Gloria
of Mexico.
Sheinbaum, president of Mexico.
So here's what he got. He got the PR of getting them to do what he wanted them to do, which they were already doing. And so he got and let's talk about China. Let's talk about that tariff. That's going to cost you and me. And when it costs rural America money, now you're going to see people not so enamored by Donald Trump. It's going to take time, but it'll happen.
The Chinese tariffs have been in place since the last Trump administration, and if they were so horrible, then why didn't Joe Biden rescind them? He didn't, because they were working. We don't have any tariffs on Canada and Mexico right now. We don't have any. And we got what we wanted. The fact of the matter is those troops were not there. We got increased enforcement. We have a brand new intergovernmental agency with the Canadian government to stop fentanyl from coming across the border.
I want to just move to another international affairs issue that's come up this week, and that's the decision to say with President of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, that the U.S. will take over Gaza, redevelop it, calling it, the potential to be the Riviera of the Middle East. I mean, what did you make of that, it seems, spontaneous announcement by President Trump on Gaza?
It was absolutely spontaneous. His own staff didn't know he was doing it.
I don't think Bibi knew he was doing it.
There was no analysis. There was no confirmation with the Defense Department. He just did it. That's what Donald Trump does. It is one of the worst blunders from foreign policy you can imagine. You're giving the radical Muslims and Arabs a rallying cry. What are you thinking? You're not going to displace 2 million Palestinians and all those pro-Palestinians who voted against Joe Biden because they thought that that Joe Biden was too pro-Israel. Stand back, because this is going to backlash and it's going to be a real problem.
I mean, Garrett, the Trump foreign policy, I thought, was one of more isolationism. This would seem to be the opposite. What do you make of this announcement?
I think I agree with Ken. I just think it's going to end up a little bit differently. I've been to, have you been to Tel Aviv?
No.
I've been to Tel Aviv many times. It's beautiful. Donald Trump is absolutely right. From Rafah all the way up to the northern coast of Israel, up to Lebanon, is beautiful. It is the Riviera.
You ready for troops to be sent
But
there?
this is the facts, okay? That is not going to happen in
I agree
Gaza.
with you.
What is going to happen is this is going to scare, exactly your response. The Palestinian people all over the world are going to freak out, and it's going to drive all of those people to come together and find a solution to America not taking over Gaza. That's what it's going to do. You already see it happening in Egypt. You already see it happening in Jordan. And you know what's interesting about those countries? They're all interested in sending Palestinian refugees to America, but they won't take them
And
themselves.
they're not going to because Donald Trump is threatening
what they're
this.
going to do is they're going to come together and they're going to find a way to fix Gaza without America doing
They're
it.
going to take the Palestinians, Egypt and Jordan.
No, they're going
That's
to
not
fix.
going to happen.
They are going to get together and fix the Gaza problem.
All
They
right.
said that 50 years ago.
Unfortunately, we'll put a pin in this. I want to go to an issue that touches upon the state of Maine, but also the Trump administration. Now, Maine Democratic Attorney General Aaron Frey is emerging as an outspoken critic of the Trump administration. In the administration's first week, he joined a lawsuit against the president's executive order to end birthright citizenship. And more recently, he joined another suit against the White House's memo to freeze federal grants and loans. That memo was later rescinded. Frey also joined in statements against the administration's stance on the Department of Government Efficiency and gender health care. I want to go to you, Ken. What role do you think the Attorney General should have in the Trump administration?
I think that the Attorney General has a duty to join lawsuits that he believes protects the interests of Maine, and I applaud this. And first, let me be critical of my Democratic friends. We have no spokesperson who has taken the lead in criticizing what Donald Trump's administration is doing, and that's a flaw of the Democrats. We have if Chuck Schumer's the best we have, we've got a problem. So when Attorney General,
please, Chuck, please keep going.
He agrees. So when attorney generals take the flag and the banner and start doing this, that's what we need. We need Democrats, and he's a Democrat, and he's a lawyer, he's an attorney general. He's got to join these lawsuits and say no, because the courts are the ones who are going to have to stop this from happening.
Well, it actually raises an interesting question. I mean, when we talk about the concept of states' rights, states asserting themselves, that sounds conservative, thinking about the abortion issue. Do you think Democrats are becoming the states' rights party in this new administration, Garrett?
I don't know. We'll find out when Trump eliminates the Department of Education. If he really wants, if Aaron Fry is really interested in states' rights, then we're going to have a full conversation about who should be funding schools in America. So I hope he joins the Trump administration on that. But, as far as the Attorney General goes, I actually take a little bit more nuanced approach to this. And actually, you might agree with me on this, Ken.
Okay.
I think this is a function of the Attorney General being elected by the legislature. It becomes a very partisan job. And I think when you look across the country, Maine is a huge outlier in how we appoint our Attorney General. The legislature elects the Attorney General. And I think, it becomes a very partisan position. And there is no question that the stances that Aaron Fry has made are incredibly partisan. They don't reflect the will of Maine people writ large. They just don't. So my opinion on this is a little nuanced. I think he has to do it for his job.
Speaking of that job, I mean, do you think there's a hint of larger political ambitions here for Aaron Fry? I mean, we have the gubernatorial race coming up in 26. Do you think he's making a name for himself?
There's always there's nobody in a political position that doesn't look ahead and think that maybe this is a stepping stone. So of course, I don't fault him for that. I don't think that necessarily dictates what he does, but sir, everything he does is political.
And Ken, what do you make of that point that the way Maine uniquely chooses its constitutional officers, Secretary of State to State Treasurer, makes them into more partisan positions than if it was a state?
The Attorney General of the United States is appointed by the president, because the theory is that you are the lawyer for the governor or for the president.
And I would agree with that. I would agree with the governor being able to appoint their attorney general.
We're in agreement. I agree.
You go back to a time where Janet Mills was attorney general and Paul LePage was governor. Paul LePage didn't have anybody to defend his position because Janet Mills was defending her position.
And Secretary of State probably should be a statewide election, not a legislative election.
And there are bills in the legislature to deal with this. I actually think it would solve a lot of problems if the governor were able to appoint him as part of his cabinet.
See how we agree?
And of course, that would require change to the Maine state constitution. And bills like that have been going on, submitted since the early 1900s. Let's take things to the legislature for a moment. Now, just minutes before the State House closed for Thursday's winter storm, Republicans on the Appropriations and Financial Affairs Committee tried to reopen voting on the supplemental budget, which had been unanimously approved by the group in a vote after midnight Wednesday, sending it to the full legislature. The move to change this all centered on Representative Kenneth Fredette not being present for the vote and trying to cast his vote that next morning. I'll go to you first, Garrett. This was something that members of either party were very upset by afterwards. I mean, who do you think came out looking better?
Well, I think, first of all, you have to understand the rules of the legislature. This is the first time this has happened in decades. It has always been commonplace, even to when I was in the legislature starting in 2010, that if you weren't there for a vote, you could come back and make your vote. You could do that for up to 72 hours. This is a new rule change that nobody knew was going on. Markedly so, because Ken Fredette is just not your rank and file member. Ken Fredette he was the leader of the House Republicans for 6 years. He knows the rules. And so for this rule change to happen, it just shows that nobody really knew what was going on. The other thing, too, that I think is worth noting, I have never heard of a committee chair not granting a reconsideration. I don't know if it's ever happened. I haven't, especially in the Appropriations Committee. Those are granted all the time. So what's being asked of them by the Republicans is minute and small.
Ken, I mean, the big work of the Appropriations Committee is, of course, working on the 2-year budget. This was on the supplemental. If you're having this hiccup this early on, what does it tell you about the cooperation between Democrats and Republicans?
Well, it wasn't a hiccup. It was a unanimous vote. It became a hiccup because Ken wanted to do a supplemental report. And I understand he didn't understand the rules. Nobody did. I don't think the Democrats said, oh, we got him now. So I'm not sure anything would change what's going to happen with budget negotiations. I don't think if this was really a wonderful, aren't we wonderful working together moment, that's going to change what's going to happen when they do the big budget.
Yeah, and I mean, the bottom line is this. Democrats need to tread carefully, especially on the supplemental, even more so than the we all know they're going to do a majority budget. That's what they're going to do. But on the supplemental, but I think we will. But the supplemental has to be passed in the next few weeks, and they need Republican support. And right now, acting this way, they're not going to get it.
Do you think they're not going to vote for this? Because it was unanimous. I know Ken wanted to vote no. I don't know why Ken wanted to vote no. But
that's relying
the Republicans did support it in that committee.
They did, but this is the thing. You have a caucus that Ken Fredette was their leader. And many of those people in that caucus are still there, and they trust Ken, especially on appropriations.
And we should end by noting that the purpose of the supplemental budget is to close this gap in Medicare, the state's Medicaid program. Okay, finally, winners and losers. A lot to pick from this week. Ken, let's start with you.
I'm going with Aaron Fry. I love what he's doing. I love that there's a Democrat out there who is saying no. I like that. As you know, I think we need more leaders who do that on a national level. Losers of the week, I'm going to say it again, democracy. We are allowing President Musk to make decisions for people who didn't elect him. And I know he's doing the bidding of Donald Trump, although he says he didn't know about any of these underlying things. But we are allowing this man who's not elected, has no overview, nothing like that, making decisions. It's hurting our democracy. It's got to end. People have to say no to it.
Garrett, winners and losers.
My winner this week is all the little girls that play sports. At the East Wing of the White House, President Trump signed what should be common sense, an executive order saying that girls play in girls sports, boys plays in boys sports.
That is a topic.
I think that is such a win, and as a dad of a daughter, I couldn't be happier. My loser of the week is the Maine Department of Education. For the second straight time, Maine students have actually gotten lower marks than they did in 2022 on standardized testing across the country. We're actually one of the worst states in the union right now for math and reading, and that is squarely on the plate of the Maine DOE.
All right, with that, thank you guys so much for joining me, and thank you for watching another edition of Political Brew